Tony's show of the day.
Does this one even need an intro? We're going to talk about Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet of 1812. I have a surprisingly close relationship with this show, and as a consequence have talked about it for what probably amounts to hours and hours of digital material right now. And so I don't want to delve into that too deeply because you know I love Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet of 1812. I think it's revolutionary and different and changes the musical theater landscape like we've never seen before. And I appreciate my own journey with it. It was suggested to me, you know, when it was way off Broadway as a thing maybe I want to listen to, and it caught my ear then, and I got to follow its wonderful journey to being the most nominated musical of the year. And so of course it's well deserving of all of its nominations because it is a beautiful piece of art. But the thing I would love to talk about is its existence this year at the Tony Awards. Again, I've mentioned it before, but there's a difference between musicals that are deserving of being the best musicals and musicals that win the Tony Award for Best Piece of Musical Theater. And there's precedent for some surprising and interesting choices here. The most cited ones, West Side Story, the musical, lost the Tony Award to The Music Man the year they were both nominated. Gypsy lost the Tony Award to The Sound of Music and Fiorello, one of the only years there was a tie for Best Musical, and Gypsy wasn't one of the tying musicals. Or more recently, Wicked, arguably one of the most pop culture popular musicals of our time, lost the Best Musical award to Avenue Q. And it's a bit of a fool's errand to try and derive any kind of meaning or trend from these figures because Tony voters and culture changes on a year-to-year basis. But if you were to try and maybe tease out the inkling of a pattern, I think what you might find is that the Tony Award seems to often go to slightly safer choices of new pieces of musical theater. Maybe. It's hard to tease out this pattern, but the most emblematic one, I think, is West Side Story, a revolutionary, sad retelling of, you know, racism on the New York streets, lost out to The Music Man, a feel-good caper about, you know, homespun Iowans and like, whoa, they're crazy antics. And something, you know, at least at that time, this more traditional musical theater feeling, like the feel-good happiness of it all, seems to garner a couple more votes than these pieces that push the envelope or find new artistry in weird and interesting ways. And this is super fascinating to me because that is the exact opposite of the standard advice when it comes to the other award shows, like the Academy Awards. They go to, you know, these art film pieces. They don't go to the new Marvel movie or Guardians of the Galaxy often. And so it's weird to see that thing kind of reversed. But I bring this up with Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet of 1812 because I think this would be the moment to see that change. You look at, I would say, the other three musicals Great Comet is up against. Dear Evan Hansen, Groundhog Day, and Come From Away. And they all sit very much more in traditional musical theater territory. They push the envelope, certainly, and are great and wonderful in their own ways, but they don't, you know, they rhyme. Which seems like such a piddly thing to say, but you listen to Great Comet, it doesn't have any standard musical theater rhyming in it. You know, people harp on the new and interesting staging of Great Comet, and I think it is so much more than that. Like, even performed, you know, proscenium style with just a couple tables and chairs, there's still something new and fascinating about this story. So, with the previous thought that these more experimental musicals that push the envelope often don't fare as well in the best musical category, I do think this is the year 2017 we might see a pretty serious shift in that. I mean, just read the comments. Everyone's split at least 3 ways among Best Musical. There's no clear-cut winner. Who knows if Great Comet can win, but it definitely has a fighting chance. And if it does win, I think it marks, it's a very serious signpost on the future history of musical theater and where our genre is headed, if this is the thing that wins the Best Musical Tony Award. And it totally might not win the award for exactly that reason. This is what makes this a really exciting Tony season for me. You know, the musical theater genre is young, is not as developed as some other well-established, you know, expressions and art forms. It doesn't have the same kind, there's more room inside the box to push it, or to push even into your own box. And so we see these kind of really whole art form and whole industry shifts happen in our time. And there's not, we don't find things to pull back to and reference because it's such a young art form. If Great Comet wins Best Musical, or even if it takes a bunch of Tonys but maybe loses Best Musical to something like Evan Hansen, it says something about our art form and where it's headed. Certainly predicated by all the things that came before it, like absolutely, Hamilton pushed the artistic envelope in some really interesting and fascinating ways, and was a very traditional piece of musical theater in a lot of its writing, because that's what Lin-Manuel Miranda loves, that's what I love, that's what a lot of people love. Dave Malloy's Great Comet is different and new, and that will forever fascinate me, and could mark some serious trend shifting in this world of musical theater that we know and love. Anyway, Great Comet is, of course, great. If you haven't listened to the on-Broadway cast recording yet, you absolutely should. I don't mean to brag, but it marks my cast recording debut. Kind of a big deal. Not really, I'm, you know, in the way background and Goodbye My Gypsy Lovers with a million other. Anyway, great show, beautiful score, wonderful people involved in the production. Hi, everyone. Go listen to it, and we'll see them on the Tonys.